Good afternoon. I see the Zoom room is filling up. We have a great presentation lined up for you today on the virtual speaker series presented by the Penn State Alumni Association. We are going to be talking to Professor Boaz Dvir, an award-winning filmmaker who tells the stories of ordinary people that transform into trailblazers. It's a fascinating presentation that he has to share with you. And we look forward to passing that on in just a couple minutes. As always, we'd love to know who you are and where you're zooming in from. Go ahead and include that information in the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom video window, or if you are joining us on Facebook Live, go ahead and share that on Facebook as well. See Valerie from Altoona and Vicky from Harrisburg. Randy Houston, the 81st president of the Penn State Alumni Association, joining us from Englewood, New Jersey. Good to see your name, Randy. Bernice Marks checking in from Mazatlan, Mexico. And I see Callie from Victoria, British Columbia. And Alice from Fort Wayne, Indiana. And Holly right down the road here in Pine Grove Mills. Holly's one of our colleagues at the Penn State Alumni Association. Good to see you. At least see your name here. Karen down in sunny and beautiful Florida, rubbing it in a little bit as it continues to warm up here in the Northeast. People checking in from Brooklyn, New York, and I see Midge from Atlanta and Nancy from Detroit. Welcome everybody to the Penn State Alumni Association's Coffee Hour. We're going to get started in just a moment. Where else would you rather be than a Zoom full of Penn Staters? Good afternoon. I'm Paul Clifford, CEO of the Penn State Alumni Association, and I'd like to welcome everybody to today's virtual speaker session, which is being recorded. Live closed captions are available for this event. You can access them by clicking the closed caption button at the bottom of the Zoom video window, and then clicking show subtitle. You may also customize your caption view by clicking the stream text link posted in the chat. We are live streaming today's presentation, and this live stream has been made possible through the gracious support of a donor and the Fund for Access, Ideas, and Audacious Goals. Today's presentation will be archived and available on our website after the This afternoon, we welcome Professor Boaz Dvir, an award-winning filmmaker who tells the stories of ordinary people that transform into trailblazers, who change the world around them. Dvir's films have been distributed by PBS, Hulu, the New York Times, Amazon Prime, Google Play, and other media outlets. His documentaries have received coverage by such media as the Huffington Post, The Guardian, the New York Post, the Miami Herald, and Stars and Stripes, among many others. Dvir is an assistant professor in the Donald P. Bellisario College of Communications and the director of Holocaust, Genocide, and Human Rights Education Initiative here at Penn State. Working with Pennsylvania's Department of Education, Dvir is leading the innovative Penn State Teacher Development Initiative expected to upgrade the instruction of difficult, vital subjects to children. In the late 1940s, World War II aviators, mostly Americans, Jews, and non-Jews, carried out a secret, illegal operation to prevent what they viewed as an imminent second Holocaust. Boaz Dvir, who has written the definitive account of this mission, Saving Israel in Rowman and Littlefield 2020, secured the exclusive interviews with its leaders, including mastermind Al Schwimmer. The former U.S. Transport Command flight engineer had a plan to save the newborn Jewish state, create a factitious airline, buy and fix decommissioned cargo planes, and smuggle in surplus Nazi weapons from behind the Iron Curtain. The tell-all interviews provided by Dvir with rich detail about World War II veterans who helped reshape history and yet largely had been forgotten by history books. Thank you for joining us today, and I want to turn it over to Professor Boaz Dvir. Boaz?
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you to the Alumni Association. Thank you, Penn State. And thank you for everyone who's joining us today on this beautiful day. I appreciate, I know everybody's probably zoomed out, so I really do mean it when I say thank you for coming in online. So we're going to talk today about an operation that took place a long time ago. Yes, it was secret, and yes, it was cool and illegal, but why does it matter? Why does it matter today? What's the point? I think today we're looking for that elusive endpoint to what we're going through. We're all going through something, right? Personally, but collectively, certainly the pandemic being right on top of our list. And I don't know if we're quite envious, but there's something romantic to this notion of an endpoint that we know definitively things are over. The pandemic is done. We can move on with our lives. Maybe we even picture ourselves running out to the streets and celebrating. And that, certainly happened after World War II, right? We all have seen those videos and images and photos of the returning soldiers and the nurses and the dancing and the kissing and so forth and so on. It seemed like, World War II, which, was just horrendous. I mean, 80 million people died, 80 million people. It was a 6-year war. It was just, it's hard to fathom. And yet, that end point, at least they had an end point, right? It was over, it was done, and they celebrated. This story that I'm going to share with you today, and I'm going to basically capsulize it for you because it's quite a long and complicated story, and that's why I made a documentary about it and wrote a book, etc. And even then, I feel like there's so much more to tell. I think it illustrates that elusive endpoint is usually an illusion. See, even World War II didn't really end on September 2nd, 1945. Certainly at that point, the war seemed to have been over, but it continued for many people, including the people who joined this operation, which was led by Al Schwimmer. Now, they may have thought the war was over to some degree because they moved on, at least before they joined the operation. They went back mostly to the United States. The operation encompassed other countries too, but was clearly led and constituted in the United States. So they went back after the war. They got jobs. They went to school. Some were in Ivy League schools, some were in other schools, NYU, Harvard, Stanford, you name it. One guy got into medical school finally. Others started businesses. They had businesses that they were starting, started families. Others continue in aviation. Some worked for a company you may remember or maybe not, called TWA, was an airline that was prominent at the time, gone today. And they seem to have moved on with their life. And yet, when given the chance to join this operation, they jumped at it. They gave up going to medical school and dropped out of Harvard and put their business on ice and said goodbye to their wives and children, many of them toddlers or even babies, right? And they did this not so much under any sort of duress and certainly not even out of any kind of peer pressure. On the contrary, everyone was telling them not to do this, including their own wives, friends, parents, even Jewish parents were against them joining this operation. See, this operation was very problematic. Not only was it secret, not only was it dangerous, but it was even illegal. It was illegal. The United States government made this operation such that it should not have existed. It was breaking the law. And in fact, the FBI was on it. The State Department was on it. The Treasury Department was on it. So when these men, mostly Americans, Jews and non-Jews, combination of both, when they joined this operation in the late 1940s, not only were they risking their lives, not only were they giving up a lot, but they were also doing something criminal. And even worse than that, they were breaking the law of the country that they loved. These were the ultimate patriots. They loved America and they believed in America. They just fought for America. America just saved the world. The world was on the verge of destruction. And it was the United States of America that saved it. And they were part of that. And now they were going against it. Why would they do that? Why? What would prompt them to do it? Was it the Holocaust? To some, yeah, to some, but not to all. And even those who were motivated by that Holocaust, I don't think fully understood what the Holocaust was yet. In fact, we didn't even call it the Holocaust yet. At the time, we used the term the destruction, the catastrophe. We didn't have, the opportunity to really reflect on it at all. So yes, that was a motivation, but it was more than that. It was that the war didn't really end for these men. For some of them, it was the Holocaust and guilt over not doing anything. For others, it was simply feeling like they still wanted to do more. For others, they missed the action. The war wasn't over. And when they looked at what was going on in the Middle East and in Europe, to them, what they viewed was a continuation of the war. You had 250,000 survivors of the Holocaust, mostly as refugees stuck in displaced persons camp in Europe, often in the same Nazi concentration camps in which they were liberated. They were liberated, but they were not set free. They were still stuck. Many of them were still wearing the same striped uniforms. Now, certainly they were not being, gassed anymore, and they were given plenty of food, but many of them continued to die. There was disease. Some of them died from overeating. In fact, it was just a terrible situation. And when Al Schwimmer looked at this, he said, we can't let this continue. We have to find a place for these people, for these refugees, for these DPs. Where could they go? Well, no one wanted them. The United States didn't want them. France didn't want them. England, you name it, no one wanted them except for one entity. And that was the Jewish community in Palestine. The Jewish community in Palestine, by the way, not only wanted them, but needed them. That is, of course, they wanted to help the Holocaust survivors, but they also wanted to help their own cause, which was to create a Jewish state. And to do that, they felt they needed more manpower, more people. And here was a great opportunity to add hundreds and thousands of more people. So they were keen on accepting them. What was the problem then? Why couldn't they take them? Because the British controlled Palestine, as they had done since 1917, and refused to let the refugees come into Palestine. They blocked them off. So Al Schwimmer, the protagonist of our story, who was a flight engineer during World War II, now working for TWA, leading a good life, he looked at this and said, I got to help bring in the refugees. And next thing he knows, he's not bringing in the refugees, but he's building an airline, a fake airline, a bogus airline, to airlift weapons to help this nation survive, this new nation survive. And that's what motivated them. They were motivated by the fact that the war had not ended. It was still continuing. As long as you had these people, the Holocaust survivors, stuck and really not being able to go anywhere, literally stuck in the same place in many cases. As long as that was happening, and as long as this new Jewish state that was created as a haven for the survivors, and to help make sure that this didn't happen again, as long as that was happening, the war was not over. And if the war was not over, then these men had to keep fighting. That's what they had to do. They had to keep fighting. So now I'm going to take a short break. It's only about 7, maybe 8 minutes. And I'm going to share with you a short document. I made a long documentary about this, an hour long for PBS. This is a short version I made with Retro Report about this operation. I'll let you watch, and then we'll come back and talk more about it. Let me make sure I'm doing this correctly.
After World War II, thousands of Europe's Jews found a new home in the Middle East, where the United Nations had agreed to split British-controlled Palestine between the Jews and the Arabs.
Transfer of power in Palestine will bring bloodshed. The call for a holy war against the Jews went out from Cairo.
Arab nations opposed the UN plan, and the leader of what was about to become the State of Israel knew what was coming.
David Ben-Gurion understood if Israel declared itself a state, it was going to have a war. None of the neighbors would accept it, and it would have to fight for its existence. So Israel was in desperate need of arms.
But the U.S. imposed an arms embargo on the entire region, hoping to stave off a full-fledged conflict.
Now the problem is the British are providing the Egyptian army, the British are providing the Iraqis. So the only one who's not getting anything through official channels are the Jews in Palestine.
So Israel turned to sympathetic Americans.
The cause, to me, was clear. You had to do it. We don't have a choice.
Al Schwimmer, then a 30-year-old TWA flight engineer, volunteered to launch a secret operation to smuggle arms to Israel. With money raised from American Jews, he bought decommissioned military transport aircraft from the U.S. government.
The war was over. They didn't need them anymore, so they put them up for sale, and we bought them.
Schwimmer gathered up 13 cargo planes at airports in California and New Jersey and enlisted dozens of American World War II veteran aviators.
One day I got a letter. Do you want to fly munitions to Palestine? If so, call this number and ask for Swifty. I didn't waste a second. It was the idea of getting back into action.
They weren't all Jews. There were many who agreed to fly with us because they knew me personally. We'd flown together in World War II. I trusted them.
Many of the men who joined the operation were moved by scenes from the Nazi death camps.
My page 1 in my family album is a picture of my grandmother, who at the age of 70 was shoved into the ovens of Auschwitz. I felt that the remnants of the Holocaust had a right to life and some chance of happiness.
I'm not Jewish. I just did it because I saw how they looked out of a concentration camp. I just felt something had to be done.
Others, like Leon Frankel, a torpedo bomber pilot, wanted to help create a Jewish state.
When I informed my mother where I was going and what I was doing, she just completely fell apart. She had just gotten her son back from 3 years of war. All of a sudden, I'm taken off again. We came for different reasons. A guy like Leo Nomis, for example, was more or less a soldier of fortune. He fought in the Eagle Squadron in the RAF. Could have gone to the other side, but he came to us.
Many of the men involved knew the smuggling operation violated U.S. law.
That was cloak and dagger. There were FBI agents spying on what they were doing.
We broke the law. There's no two ways about it. We broke the law badly.
After Czechoslovakia agreed to sell Israel arms, Schwimmer and his men headed out. Taking a circuitous route to avoid detection, they hopscotched across the globe to pick up the weapons, some of them originally built for the Germans during World War II.
They were really Nazi weapons. If you look closely into the metal, you will see the German eagle. But you know what? I never saw anybody who complained they were using a German weapon. We were just happy to have weapons, period.
Included in the deal were 25 fighter planes with rickety engines, but Schwimmer's men volunteered to fly those too.
I started it up and I figured, oy vey, Zamir, we're in trouble. I was checked out after a 35-minute flight. In the American Air Force, in order to get checked out in an airplane, you get about 100 hours.
Then, in May 1948, as war broke out between Israel and its Arab neighbors, Schwimmer's crew started delivering the weapons to Israel, but the invading forces appeared unstoppable.
We got information that the Egyptians had an armored column driving up the coast. Our people had nothing there to stop them.
A jeep roars up. He says, listen, the whole Egyptian army is 6 miles from the air base here. If we don't stop them tonight, they'll be in Tel Aviv tomorrow morning, and the war is over. We're finished.
That's when Lennart and 3 other pilots launched Israel's first aerial attack.
The most critical thing was surprise. The Egyptians had no idea that we had airplanes.
I turned the airplane upside down, which is a split S, because when you dive bomb, the closer you get to a 90-degree angle, the better your aim is.
Although the aerial attack caused little physical damage, it spooked the Egyptians into abandoning their march on Tel Aviv.
And the Egyptian column never moved north after that.
Throughout the 9-month war, Schwimmer's pilots took part in combat missions, bombed Cairo, and ferried supplies to besieged Israeli soldiers in the desert. They helped the Jewish state survive its first challenge.
It was a feeling of having accomplished something for once in my life.
But the war was costly, with thousands of lives lost on both sides, and more than 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes on land that became part of Israel. As for the Americans who took part,
The United States put an order out to arrest us, but they were never able to catch up to us. Until in the end, when we went ahead and gave ourselves up.
Schwimmer and 10 others were charged with arms smuggling and breaking the Neutrality Act. One man went to prison, and others were fined $10,000.
America has never flinched from its commitment to the State of Israel.
It's a special relationship.
But over the decades, as the U.S. became Israel's strongest supporter, 3 American presidents would issue pardons for some of the men, including Al Schwimmer.
I have no grudge against the United States. They did what they had to do. I did what I had to do to help to create a state of Israel. That was the goal.
Sorry about that. So that was a quick way, I think, of telling quite a long and complex story. And we can get more into the story, of course, in lots of details. And there are many aspects that are not explored in this 8-minute piece. But I want to get back to the point a little bit that we're talking about today and go back to today, actually, with it, too. And that is that, you know, it's good when something ends. It is. We all want the pandemic to end. We all wanted World War II to end. There's no question. But there's also something to be said for realizing that, unfortunately, in life, in general, and certainly with these big events, it's not so simple. And maybe the fact that it's not so simple is actually an opportunity. For these guys, it was an opportunity to do something that they didn't really get to do much in World War II. During World War II, the Allies did not do much for the victims of the Nazi genocide. They liberated them, and they deserve credit for that. But during the Holocaust, they were mostly absent. And here was a chance to actually really help these Holocaust survivors. It was a chance in their mind to prevent a second Holocaust. Now, why is that? And keep in mind, I don't know that I even personally agree that there would have been a second Holocaust, but that's not the point. The point is that they believed, these men believed that they were staring at another Holocaust. Why? You had 600,000 Jews in Palestine. The British were leaving, and the Arabs said that they would then invade Palestine. And what did they declare, the Arabs? And again, I don't know that they will have done it. In fact, I doubt that they will have carried this out myself. But they said that they would go and sweep the Jews to the sea. They said that they would go in 5 advanced militaries, right, attacking, and they would complete the job that the Nazis had started. They would finish the final solution. And these men who participated in this secret illegal operation believed them. Why did they believe them? Well, first of all, I mean, if you go back and see statements that were made by other leaders, like Hitler, you realize that they meant it, right? They grew up in a time when a leader said, I'm gonna get rid of these people. They were not just saying it, they meant it. Hitler meant it. He wasn't just, saying this for the sake of getting people riled up. He had a plan. So when they were hearing other leaders saying the same thing, what were they going to do? They were going to take it at their words, number one. Number two, these 5 militaries that neighbored Israel, it was called, not yet Israel, but let's call it Israel. The neighboring militaries were advanced. They were equipped, trained by the British and the French. They had the latest air forces, the latest tanks, artillery, you name it. They were fully armed. They certainly had all the bullets and rifles and machine guns in the world. Israel had none of that. Israel had no air force, no artillery, a couple of old tanks. They didn't even have enough bullets and rifles for their own men. That on the first day of the war, after the British left, Israel declared independence, and these Arab militaries attacked. Israel activated only 20,000 of its 60,000 troops because it only had enough rifles for those 20,000 people. 40,000 troops that were needed to fight a war that, by the way, Israel was losing badly in the first 2 weeks, could not be activated. There were no rifles for them. And even the 20,000 who did have rifles had only enough bullets to last a few days. So this operation saved Israel. It literally saved Israel. It brought the weapons, it brought the Air Force, it brought what it took to prevent, in the mind of the participants, what will have been a second Holocaust. And so the fact that to these participants, World War II did not end on September 2nd, 1945, was a blessing. It was certainly a blessing for the Holocaust survivors. It was certainly a blessing for the 600,000 Jews who lived in Palestine. You could argue it was a blessing for the world. You could argue that the Middle East has benefited from having a democracy in it, and so forth and so on. It also benefited the men themselves. Each one of them, and I interviewed 30 of them, each one of them, and again, they all came for different reasons and had different motivations and backgrounds. Some of the Jews were not religious at all and had little connection to Judaism. Others were maybe devout Christians, others were mercenaries, but they all said, each one of them repeated to me that this was the highlight of their life, the best period of that they can ever remember, the greatest achievement of their life, because to them it didn't end. So when we look at the pandemic and we're all waiting for it to end, me too, by the way, I can't wait. I cannot wait for this thing to end, believe me. I will be thrilled. We have to think, what opportunities are here for us, in some way, as morbid as it sounds, to extend it? Where can we use the momentum that we have to improve our society, to improve the environment, the world, to improve the health of everyone, children, older people, to improve equity and diversity? We have momentum, we have tailwinds behind us. We want it to end, but we also want to seize this great opportunity to really make other lasting differences, so we emerge from this terrible pandemic in a better place. I don't think the end point should be about going back to normal, the way things were. I think it should be about, we had a remarkable opportunity here to unite and work together and accomplish amazing things, such as vaccines, multiple vaccines in less than a year, that are more effective than previous vaccines were that took decades to develop. I mean, it's remarkable, right? We have a chance to take this momentum and not go back to normal or not adjust to this new reality, but maybe go for a third option of creating something new. This is what these men did. They did their service. They had nothing to prove. They fought for the winning side in World War II, but they saw an opportunity to do something that would extend their contribution to making the world a better place. And I think that's the point. That's the lesson. That's what they give us. And I think that's what we can take away from it. Certainly we can learn about innovation and never giving up and doing what it takes to survive. I mean, when the FBI and the US State Department and the Treasury Department grounded their transport planes, that they needed to fly to Czechoslovakia to pick up the weapons and rush them into Israel so the soldiers there could protect themselves, so they would have enough rifles and enough bullets. But they couldn't get these planes out because they were grounded. they came up with factitious airlines, but the FBI would shut them down. So they came up with another. And finally, they couldn't do that anymore. It was done. It looked like checkmate. You can't get these planes out. They're grounded. We're not going to let you come up with some other factitious name. What did they do? They approached the Panamanians. The Panamanians had just built a new international airport. But as luck would have it, despite having a new airport, they still lacked their own national airline. So Al Schwimmer and the members of this operation approached the lead attorney in Panama, who happened to have connections with the government, and proposed that they would be Panama's national airline. And the Panamanians agreed. And so the 13 transport planes that they had all became registered to Panama's national airline. LAPSA was the acronym. And technically, the US government could not ground those. And so they were able to take off. They had to go to Panama. They had to pretend for a bit to be the national airline of Panama. They even flew around some livestock and cattle and had a party. But eventually they told the folks in Panama, we're going to take a route survey flight. And all 9 planes, at that point, they had 9 planes. One crashed, a couple were indeed grounded, took off at the same time and flew away, eventually making it to Czechoslovakia, and of course, never came back to Panama. So, you know, there are other lessons, innovations and creative thinking. But the ultimate lesson is that when you're given a great opportunity, even if you're anxious to be done with it, see where else it can take you. So with that, I know that I'm supposed to not talk for too long. I will then now open it up for any questions that you may have.
Boaz, thank you so much for the fascinating presentation and for sharing that video. We do have a number of questions coming in. We want to invite people to use the Q&A tab if you would like to ask Boaz some questions. But first, I'm wondering if you might share a little bit about your background and how you came to Penn State and first got interested in the topics that you write about and investigate and make movies about.
So, Paul, as you introduced, and thank you for that good introduction. I appreciate that. That was kind of you. You mentioned I focus on ordinary people who go through extraordinary circumstance and become trailblazers. And the truth is that this is not something that I set out to do. It's something I recognized in my work and realized one by one they fit that bill. Right. And so it's just something I'm drawn to. In the case of this operation, you may wonder about who's that ordinary guy. Well, it's several of them, but in particular, it's Al Schwimmer. Al Schwimmer was an ordinary guy before this. I mean, there was no indication that he would change the Middle East. He was a good flight engineer, but there were thousands of good flight engineers around the world at the time. He served in World War II and served well, but he was not a hero. He didn't do anything in particular. He dreamed of and spoke about starting his own airline, but even after World War II, he didn't take any action. He didn't set up. There were many people who were setting up airlines. He didn't do that. He remained a flight engineer. And when he approached the Jewish community of Palestine, he approached their office in New York, he didn't intend to do anything. He just had a great idea. He said, you know, you are trying to get these Holocaust survivors into Palestine, but you're putting them on ships. So they're sitting ducks on the Mediterranean. What happens? You know, they're floating by and the Royal Air Force identifies them and sends a message to the Royal Navy. These are, of course, the British Air Force and Navy. And they intercept these ships. And what do they do with them? They take them to other camps, mostly in Cyprus. So they never make it. So he said, I got a better idea. Fly them in a lot quicker, a lot faster, and you can do it in the middle of the night. So that's what he came up with. And then eventually, and it took a while. In the beginning, they were not interested in talking to him at all. Adolf Schwimmer, who's this guy? He had no record, no track record of being involved in the Jewish community. When they finally did say, okay, we could use, the equivalent of a Jewish air transport command, right, on a small scale. Why don't you run it? He was like, me? But, that was his opportunity to then, an extraordinary circumstance, to become a trailblazer. And he took it and he ran with it. But he was very much an ordinary guy. And that's one example. I can give many more.
So you are a journalist at heart. You do these investigations. Can you talk about the techniques that you used to uncover information that was meant to keep secret? This question's coming in from Susan Hoover. She asked because her grandfather was a Jewish soldier who did many behind the line missions in Germany, etc., but she's been unable to get access to any of his records. How do you get the story that's meant to be secret?
So yes, you do want to get documents. In this particular case that we're talking about, of course, every story is different.
Right.
On the document side, I got very lucky. You see, the FBI did me a huge favor by making it an illegal operation. They kept many records on these guys, on Al Schwimmer and some of the other key leaders. They also put 12 of them on trial. So I have all the court documents too. So, frankly, in this case, it was kind of easy. It was all there, and it was all there for the taking. And they did a lot of work. These attorneys, these FBI agents, the T-men, as they were called, from the Treasury Department, the U.S. Department, tons of documents that I was able to get a hold of. But that's not really how you get the full story, and it's not the key. The key is to get to know the pivotal people and earn their trust so that they are forthcoming and tell you what happened. That's the key. And the only way to earn someone's trust is to really be genuine, to really care about them. I have to understand each time that I'm dealing with a human being. I am not at all just there to extrapolate information out of them and use it for my own project. It's not what it's about. I have to build a relationship, and it's got to be a real relationship, and it's got to be a transparent relationship. And I have to show them and mean it that I care about them as human beings. And I'm not there to put them at risk. And I always tell people that, if you tell me something that you don't want me to use, this is information you're giving me. You have that right. If you tell me I can't use it, it's off the record, then it's off the record and I will not use it, which sounds like a nice thing, like, oh, I'm so nice, I'm telling them. The truth is that that's the case for journalists too, right? Anyone can put anything off the record and they can't use it. But I go out of my way to explain it to them, make them aware of it and remind them of it and show them. And it comes from really caring about them, connecting with them, spending time with them, getting to know their families and getting to know their stories, and then listening. It's so important to really, really listen. You see, you can't fake listening, right?
Right.
Could you fake listening, Paul, with anyone? Could you, your wife or your kids, could you nod while they're talking? And no, they're not going to buy it.
You always get caught. You always get caught, right?
You always get caught. So you have to really, really listen. And you can't come in with your own agenda and a set of questions. You have to have a conversation and listen to them and ask follow-up questions. And then the story starts to emerge. You create, basically, it's not about asking great questions as much as it is creating the right safe environment in which they are increasingly comfortable and their memories flood out. And then you get the story.
Yeah, as I hear you talk about it, it would have been almost impossible for you to have told the story like this early in your career, right? I would imagine that your track record of telling stories like this, paint the picture of you being able to tell genuine stories and allow people to probably open up, right? I mean, it's, I see the poster in the back of the Kojak movie that you have worked on and some of the other work, right? Your career has kind of led the groundwork for more and more of these types of conversations to be able to occur as authentically as they do.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes time. It takes time and patience. And some of my projects take 3 years, some 5, some 10. However long they take is what they take. And you have to be able to remain excited and curious the whole way through. That's another part of it, is how do you really explore this, is through continual curiosity.
Yeah. So some people have a couple questions about some of the references that you've made. One's asking about how would you define the term second Holocaust and how this was preventing a potential second Holocaust. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So the term second Holocaust was one that the participant used, the people that I interviewed, the ones who participated in this. And initially I found it jarring. I was second Holocaust, what are they talking about? And the Holocaust is a singular event. And And yes, it would have been tragic if Israel had lost the war and not survived, but is that the Holocaust? But I kept hearing it over and over again. In fact, I believe almost every single one of them, and family members as well, used it. And it became very clear to me that that's how they saw it. So it didn't matter if I saw it that way. What mattered is I have to tell the story through their eyes, and they perceived that this would be a second Holocaust.
Right.
Now, why? Why would they have thought that this was a second Holocaust? And again, it's because the leaders who were leading the offensive, planning the offensive, declaring their intentions to attack Israel, said that this would be, in a sense, a second Holocaust. They didn't use that term then. They said, we will sweep the Jews to the sea, we will finish what Hitler started, we will complete the final solution. And so they felt the pressure to deal with that. Now, let's say that the Arabs would have won. Let's say that this operation would have been stopped. It could have been as simple as Panama already had its airline and they didn't need a second one, and the planes are grounded and that's it. And the Jews don't have an air force and don't have weapons and they lose, right? They were very close to losing. Would the Arab militaries have carried out their threats? I don't know. I tend to think not. I don't think that they would have done what the Nazis would have done, which, I mean, if the Nazis go in there, they kill all 600,000 people. We know that.
Right.
Every man, woman, and child, it didn't matter who, they kill every single one of them. Unabashedly, they just do it. Would the Arabs have done that? I don't think so. I don't think so because if you look at the track record of the Jewish people in Arab countries and compare it to Europe, you see a huge difference. In the Arab world, you see some problems, absolutely, and violence and issues and massacres. It wasn't pristine. But you don't see anything like the Holocaust ever, in history. You don't see anything like the pogroms or the Inquisition or the Crusades or anything like that at all. Other events that had happened throughout history in Europe that were genocidal against the Jews. And so without that hate and track record, I can't imagine that suddenly, viciously, that happens. I don't believe that it would have. I don't believe there would have been a second Holocaust, but they did, and maybe thank God that they did, because their sense of urgency is what saved these people and what saved this country, and ultimately, I think again contributed to having a democracy in the Middle East, which I think we can appreciate.
Absolutely. Some people have some questions about the details of the operation. Brian wants to know, how was the operation financed?
So initially, they actually tasked Al Schwimmer with raising money and tried to get some money for him too. And he was terrible at it. There's a story about him in Beverly Hills meeting with Mickey Cohen, the mobster. I don't know if that name rings a bell. He was a mobster in LA, a Jewish mobster. And he came and he had $50,000 in cash and he gave him the money. But he insisted that the money would go to the Irgun, not to them, which was a Jewish organization widely seen even among Jews as being a terrorist organization, actually. So Al was not very good at it. And they knew they needed a lot of money. The Czech, who gave Israel the weapons, Czechoslovakia was the only country in the world willing to break the arms embargo and give Israel weapons. But they charged Israel a lot of money, $11 million, which I think is like $150 million in today's money. So the leader of the Jewish community in Palestine, David Ben-Gurion, sent Golda Meir, her name was not even Meir yet, it was Golda Meyerson, sent her back to the US, where she came from, the US, to raise $5 million, which seemed very ambitious. And he gave her 6 weeks to do it. That was the deadline. And she didn't have a lot of experience. She ended up being in Chicago on the first night in the US and being put in front of the Jewish Federation conference attendees without having really prepared a speech or knowing what she's doing. And she spoke from the heart and explained, look, if we don't get this money, if we can't buy these weapons, if we can't, she didn't allude to it directly, but basically what she was saying is, if you don't give us money to fund this operation and buy these weapons and bring them in, we're done, we're finished. It's a second Holocaust, right?
Right.
And she was able to, in those 6 weeks, actually a little less, about 5 weeks, she was able to raise not 5 million, not 10 million, $50 million. So the financial problem was gone, and Schwimmer did not have to try to raise money anymore, which he was happy about. It was the one thing he failed at, and he could focus on what he was good at.
You mentioned that the FBI investigated and that some of the folks involved went to trial. Later on, some were pardoned while others weren't over the years. Why do you think that was?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure I have a factual answer for it. You know, in each of the three pardons, there were connections. So the first to be pardoned was Hank Greenspan. Hank Greenspan, by the way, was connected to the mob initially, worked as the publicity man for the casinos for the mob in Las Vegas, and then went on to start his own newspaper there. The Las Vegas, is it Sun? I'm sorry, I forget the exact.
That'd be a good name for a newspaper in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I can't remember if this is Sun or it's that one. Anyway, he started his own newspaper there, and he was actually the first publisher in this country to take on Senator McCarthy and his campaign against the Reds and against the communists, that witch hunt that he led. And he became close to JFK, John F. Kennedy, who was actually, by the way, the first president in US history to be friendly to Israel. Up until JFK, the presidents were not friendly to Israel at all. And JFK pardoned him. He was his friend and he pardoned him. And then Al Schwimmer was pardoned by Clinton because Brian Greenspan, Hank's son, who was close to the Democratic Party, asked Clinton to do that because Al Schwimmer was the leader. So there was always a connection. But I agree, it's unfair. All 12 of them, not just 3, should have been pardoned. And maybe they still can be, actually, and they should be.
So Michael wants to know, with the creation of the Jewish state, many Palestinians were displaced. Why do you think so many were displaced, and was that necessary for the creation?
So it's terrible what happened to the Palestinians then and continues to be to this day. Okay, and I think that the Palestinians, when it came to this war, were in some ways just as victimized as the Jews. And here's what happened. The Palestinians lived in this land for hundreds of years, but they did not necessarily have their own national aspirations.
Right.
In November of 1947, the UN decided to split Palestine between the Jews and the Arabs. The Jews accepted the deal, the Arabs did not. Now, even then, the Palestinians didn't say, we want our half or however much we get to be the state of Palestine. The Jews said, we'll take our half and make it the Jewish state. They didn't know they would call it Israel yet. They didn't decide till the last minute. They were deciding between Israel, Judea, they weren't sure. Anyway, but the Palestinians didn't have national aspirations, but they were leaving them. The Arabs, the surrounding Arab countries said, we're not accepting this deal. And we don't need to accept this deal. Why do we need to take half when as soon as the British leave, we can have the whole thing? Who's going to stop us? The Jews have nothing. We got advanced militaries. We're just going to run them over and take it over. There was no plan at that point necessarily to create a Palestine out of that. It wasn't clear what the Arabs would do, other than that some of them were juxtaposing and positioning themselves to become the big Arab leader. So, Egypt thought that they would take a section and keep it for themselves. Jordan thought they would keep like Jerusalem, which they ended up doing actually,
right.
Etc. Knowing all this, they told the Palestinian residents of Palestine, listen, you might want to get out and leave for a week or two while we go in so you don't get caught in the crossfire. So most of the 700,000 Palestinians who left, more than 600,000 of them, left because they were told, leave your home, you'll be able to come back in a week or two after we take it over and it will be safe. So for most of them, there was nowhere to go back to because Israel won the war unexpectedly, right? There was, and it remains controversial, but there was at least one, and we believe several instances of Israelis actually expelling Palestinians from certain parts. And we believe that, and it's controversial, but there's enough evidence to show that about 70,000 Palestinians were indeed pushed out of their homes by the Israelis as well, which is a shameful episode.
I wonder if any of your storytelling or research, has provided you with some insight into the, I don't know how to phrase it, but maybe the national psyche of the state of Israel, right? It was formed with refugees from one war. They came and had to fight immediately another war to keep the early state, right? And as we know, the history, which is less than 100 years, right? It's a relatively new country, has been wrought with war and strife in that region. What are those origins? What is that history? How does that help us to understand kind of the national psyche of Israel or of Israelis?
Yeah, there's a lot to say about that. I'll take one kind of single point and go kind of vertical with it, because I think it's one that maybe some people have not thought about as much, and that is the need for true autonomous independence. The Israelis had no friend at all, other than this operation. Even the United States took action to prevent the creation of the Jewish state. Yes, indeed, the United States did vote for this partition plan that I mentioned, where the UN decided to split Palestine, but then a few days later enacts its own arms embargo, which basically says, yeah, we'll allow you to be a state, but we're not going to give you any weapons to protect yourself, so you're going to die. And then after that, if that's not bad enough, the United States goes as far as to go back to the United Nations and come up with a new plan to reverse the partition plan. It's called a trusteeship, where after the British would leave, it wouldn't be split between the Jews and the Arabs. No, instead, the United Nations would take it over. So no Jewish state. So the Jews had no friend, none, right? No country really was. The only country that was friendly to Israel was the Soviet Union, which I don't think we have time to get into why. And Israel was not interested in that. Israel was not interested in being friends with the Soviet Union. So the Israelis right from the beginning understood, I have to do it for myself because no one else will do it for me. And that kind of go alone mentality is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it has helped Israel be safe and strong and become one of the strongest militaries in the world and advance technologically and survive. And I don't think anyone doubts anymore that Israel will survive. On the other, it can lead you sometimes to have this mentality of being under siege and being paranoid and not trusting and not opening yourself up a little more to the world. So it's a double-edged sword. And I think now that Israel has advanced so much, it's time to loosen that up and understand more and more that, yeah, you're a great country, but you're part of an international community. And yes, you can do more for others, like Arab citizens of your country, for diversity, for equity. Yes, you can do something about perhaps ending the occupation, maybe you're strong enough now, you have enough friends, it's okay. Maybe you can actually take the next step and rise above that because you don't need it anymore.
We could talk about this topic, I think, for another hour or so, but we are running out of time. I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about the Holocaust Education Initiative. And if people want more information about that, where can they find that and how can they be supportive of the work that you're doing?
The Holocaust Education Initiative, or the full name is Holocaust, Genocide, and Human Rights Education Initiative at Penn State, was born out of the Department of Education here in the state approaching me about using A Wing and a Prayer and Kojo as part of its curriculum, and then it grew out of it. And we understood that there was a great need that we can help meet. When you look at Holocaust education, you see a real robust effort that's been going on by many, dozens, maybe even hundreds of highly qualified organizations from all over the world, having poured enormous resources into it, spending billions of dollars, and having done this for decades across the globe and the country, right? Just tremendous. And if you look at the content that they use, it's some of the best educational content in the world. I mean, you're talking about great, obviously, source materials like Anne Frank, right, or Elie Wiesel's books, or Schindler's List. I mean, you name it, I can go on, and amazing documentaries, and then great auxiliary material around it. And you have places like the Shoah Foundation at the University of Southern California, where they have more than 50,000 interviews of people, not just in the Holocaust, but in other genocides, 9 genocides. So with all this incredible material and effort and money and great thinkers, organizations, you think that Holocaust education would be successful. And yet, can anyone draw the conclusion that it's successful? In fact, can anyone look at Holocaust education and not come to the obvious conclusion that it's been a colossal failure? Study after study, including recent one, shows that young people in this country don't know what the Holocaust is. They don't. And the rallying cry of Holocaust education, never again. Never again. How many times has this happened again and again and again since the Holocaust, right? Never again. That hasn't worked at all. Luckily in Israel, it didn't happen again, yes. But what about Rwanda, Syria? I mean, I can go on and on and on, right? So it's not working. So what's the problem? We think that here at Penn State, through a multidisciplinary effort with many different colleges, we have figured it out. We have figured out the missing link of what's missing. And that is the science of teacher development. We have a whole department in the College of Education devoted to the science of studying how to develop teachers, how to give them the pedagogical tools and the teaching equipment that they need and the instrumental, capability to take these subjects and make them meaningful for those students. And that's what we're doing. We're marrying the two so that it can finally be effective. And in fact, more so than just making sure that people know about it, we want to use the education around these topics to empower teachers and kids. This is a great opportunity not just to bestow knowledge on children. Yes, they need knowledge, teachers, and we all need knowledge. But much more important than that, we are focused on providing insight into the human psyche and developing life skills. We're using this to allow children to develop their empathy, to develop their listening, to create civic discourse, to let them understand that they can use their own critical thinking, that they can decide for themselves. Even if they hear racism at home, they can make up their own mind. They can stand up for what's right, against bullying, for climate change, whatever it might be that they choose. We don't want to tell them what to think. We just want to give them the tools to think. And we want to allow their teachers to take on these difficult topics, out of which usually there's controversy and strife. And so the teachers stay away from them and flip it and allow it to be used in a classroom as an opportunity to empower themselves, empower their children, and create a new type of classroom that we think can then help create a new society.
It's amazing. And that's how this project changes the world, right? It's a K through 12 initiative. The work that you're doing from the K through 6 is particularly fascinating, right? How you're focusing on the soft skills, right? That we need to develop of empathy and emotional intelligence and kind of how to think for yourself, right? That's how, right, where the concept of genocide and Holocaust might be too much for that age group to grasp, right? You're still teaching the skills so that will help them grasp and understand it later on in their life. Fantastic work, Boaz. Thank you so much for being here on the virtual speaker series. We put the link for the work that you're doing. We put that in the chat if people want to check that out and see all the great work that Boaz and his team are doing here at Penn State. Also, stay tuned for a future edition of the Penn Stater magazine, as we're going to feature this work as well in the Penn Stater coming up. But thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. Much appreciated. And we are
Penn State. I want to thank everybody for joining us as well on Zoom and on Facebook Live. Thank you so much for your support of Penn State. If you're a member of the Penn State Alumni Association, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're not, what are you waiting for? Go out to our website at alumni.psu.edu, and you too can become a member of the world's largest alumni association. Again, thanks for joining us and for all you do for the university, for the glory, and for the future. We are
Penn State.